look at these organizations, they're spending on average 85% of their resources on compensation for people who provide direct supports. And what the quality of that relationship is really what I kind of refer to as where the magic happens, or the glue within the system. The quality of services is directly proportional and directly related to the quality of the relationship that exists between the person receiving that support and the person providing that support. And so when we see these really kind of disturbing turnover rates within the system across the board, you know that you are losing quality, you are eroding the quality of the system. I don't need to look further than my own family. I have a brother with a developmental disability in Syracuse. He self-directs his day supports. We, through his circle of support, have helped him hire 2 part-time staff people to support him in those activities, both work, volunteering, and other activities. He's 37, and when you see a disruption in that relationship. I mean, these are relationships that, even for someone like my brother, who does not is not dependent on that direct support professional for some pretty intimate types of supports, whether it be toileting or bathing or feeding. My brother can do all of those by and large on his own. But even that relationship, that is a relationship that exists between one individual and another, and a supporting relationship, when we don't have enough foundation in the system to be able to support people that provide those supports themselves, to be able to support their own families, you're going to see a natural erosion of that. And we've now taken what was already, I think, a major problem, a systemic dysfunction, if you will, and we've now exacerbated that to the point where I think it actually threatens services and supports.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit, I guess extrapolating on that, society doesn't really seem to understand the value of this kind of service. I mean,
Agreed.
The person, the DSP who spoke just before you, had talked a little bit about how, hospice workers, people get it about hospice workers, the value of that, even if maybe they're not paid what they should be paid. But in terms of DSPs, nobody knows. And this is, it's the love people get, it's the care, it's the daily services, it's intimate kind of services, taking care of, minute by minute needs that we may even think about.
Right.
So I want to just talk a little bit about the value of that and how it's perceived by society.
I think that's a really insightful point. And I think that we...
Can you restate the point? I'm not my voice.
Sure. The point about the value or the love, if you will, within the system when individuals are supporting others, and I think that's a good point, because I think as a society we have seen an erosion of the value, the societal value that is placed upon individuals who provide supports to others, whether that be in that hospice role, whether that be in a direct support service role, whether that be in a mental health program or substance use disorder program. I think those are all facing similar types of situations, and I don't think we as a society value that role. But then that is compounded, I think, significantly in this particular sector of developmental disabilities, given the extraordinary reliance on public dollars to make those services a reality. And unfortunately, I believe that the squeaky wheel does indeed get the grease. And for quite a long time, I believe that this sector was not the squeakiest of wheels. And now I think we've gotten to a point where that crisis is now upon us. I am very concerned that our policymakers are not tuned in enough to the cries of this community to be aware of what is really necessary to save it. I mean, we're talking about a constitutional and a statutory mandate, a responsibility of state government to support people with developmental disabilities, and we see, I think, an erosion of that. That is not, by the way, a responsibility that is borne by the organizations that are members of the New York State Rehabilitation Association or any of the others. Those are providers of services that do so on behalf of state government. But that erosion that I think we were speaking of a minute ago is certainly felt very poignantly here. And I don't think that there is a deep appreciation about for the level of support that is necessary here. It is easy to quantify and easy to qualify in many other areas what work is necessary. And when you talk about direct support professionals, then the work depends and is dependent on the needs of the individual. That can be everything from extreme needs, very, very heavy needs in terms of pureeing food to be able to consume it, cleaning up after food, toileting and whatnot, changing clothes and diapers and all kinds of medical aspects, the challenges that go along with that, to people who are pretty independent and need some support in their community to be able to live a quality life, a high quality enough life that that meets our societal standards. And I think that there's not a deep appreciation about what the alternative really is. I mean, we talk about that history from which we came, this service system came, and I don't think still many people really understand or fully appreciate some of the challenges, some of the deplorable conditions of that system. And if we're not going to provide supports in a community, if we're not going to empower people to maximize their opportunities and take advantage of all that their life may afford them, the alternatives are pretty stark. And I don't think we have a deep appreciation about the alternatives to properly funding a system to be able to support individuals to live a quality enough life that really does meet our standards.
Okay, so when is money? So here we are, mid-October. When is money typically proposed, and when is it allocated, and when does it go into effect?
It is not. We are being particularly strategic about our ask at this point. The budget making process is indeed underway. The governor has notified his state agencies about the need for budget proposals to come to him. That took place a few weeks ago now, and the request was a flat budget, a no increase and no decrease budget for OPWDD and many of the other state agencies. I think all of them, if I'm not mistaken. But now we're in the midst of that, the depth of that process right now, an internal process to the executive to essentially create and craft an executive budget proposal, which the governor will officially present in January. I think usually the second week of January. We know that process is underway. We believe that the governor is the one who needs to be taking the action, taking the initiative on this front. When the legislature has talked about this issue and tried to do something on this issue, quite frankly, they do not have the level of authority that the governor has in budget making processes. They can tweak, they can modify, they can make small changes. They cannot necessarily make changes that are to the magnitude of what we're talking about here as a $45 million investment each year for 6 years. That's something that really needs to come from the leadership of an executive after some of the court decisions from the 90s outlined the budget making process. So we are hopeful that at this point in the process, we are making ourselves known. We are notifying all of the policymakers in the executive who are involved in that budget making process about our need, so that we can expect to see some recognition of that when an executive budget proposal is released in January. And then the process after that is a negotiation with the legislature, between the governor and the legislature, over a period of about 2 months to come to a final agreement. But as I said, much of what a governor proposes in his executive budget proposal is usually what ends up becoming law as the final enacted budget. There is a limited capacity for the legislature to make modifications, and we know again that what we're talking about here, the magnitude of something that we're talking about here, to save this system, is going to need to come from the leadership of an executive, not from the legislature.
What can families and citizens who care about this issue do?
I think that the fact that they are getting involved now speaks volumes. It is very easy, particularly I think in Albany and in the in any legislative process or any budget making process, to advocate on behalf of oneself. That is not now what we're seeing. We are now seeing people who have a tangential relationship to the need for a new resource that we like that, which we are asking for here, coming forth in droves, coming forth understanding that this is not about an increase in the quantity of services that are available. Instead, an increase necessary to improve the quality of the services. And to have someone come forth and advocate on behalf of others for, in this case, a wage increase, I think is quite powerful. And it's not lost on me that as you look at the organizations that are members of this coalition, the Be Fair to Direct Care Coalition, so many of them are providers of services. And those providers of services are coming forward and advocating on behalf of their employees, of their direct support professionals, saying, we need something for our employees. This is management advocating on behalf of labor. It's quite remarkable in many, many ways.